What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Tom, the OG Fit Kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate.
And our guest joining us today from Over the Moonsault on Instagram, KAYCEE Liendо. KAYCEE, how's it going?
Really great to be here. I'm very excited. I love talking wrestling. So yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you. I think, were you on Coming Down the Aisle with J-Bone?
I believe, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he kind of mentioned you, and we had seen your stuff, all the awesome cosplay you do. How did you get into that? Like, where did all that start? Because the Razor Ramon popped me huge. It was so good. And I love the video you posted of meeting House of Black in your full getup. So how did that all start, the cosplay?
Yeah, well, I've been doing cosplay since like 2014, 2015. I would just do like Disney princesses. And then I got into wrestling about 2019. And then 2020 is when I actually started watching like live wrestling, and I just combined the two art forms together. You know, it's my way of paying homage and respect to something that I love very, very much.
That's awesome. How hard is it to find cosplayers? Always like blow me away with how you guys create your costumes. Like, where do you find the stuff, or where do you find the actual costumes?
Well, it's a combination of things. What I do is kind of like a closet cosplay. So I'll try to find pieces that are already like pre-made, and then I'll either alter them or I'll try to fit them to create that wrestler. Like that Razor Ramon one you mentioned, it's a bathing suit bottom and a tuxedo top. And then I went in and created the fonts and the razors on there and everything. But I mean, they're pieces that I bought off of Amazon.
Wow. That's so cool. That's super creative, like super crafty, super creative. I love it. I think it's awesome.
Do you go to events dressed like that too?
I've been trying to, you know, now that things are starting to open up and, you know, there's more opportunities to, I've been trying to take those wrestling cosplays to actual wrestling events or, you know, WrestleCon. So I'm very excited for more opportunities to meet wrestlers and kind of show my respect in that way.
That's really cool.
Well, thank
That's
you.
awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here. We have three pretty crazy topics. I figure it's going to get a little wild, but
a little bit of news this week.
Just a little bit of news.
Something happened right over the weekend.
yeah.
And we're gonna touch on it. So if you guys are ready, what we'll do, we have three topics. One that you brought to the table, KAYCEE, and then we'll do 10 to 15 minutes on each topic.
Sounds good.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
Let's get into the first topic. First topic of the evening: does the supposed AEW locker room turmoil hurt the on-screen product? So we all know that there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of stuff in the dirt sheets, a lot of stuff going on backstage. Does it hurt the on-screen product?
I mean, sure. If you're going to have guys who don't want to work with each other because of the shit going on backstage, it would absolutely hurt the backstage product. Do we know if that's happening? Are they professional enough to work with each other? We don't know, but if there's a great story we're not going to get because guys are on different sides of that locker room, it's absolutely going to hurt the backstage product.
Yeah.
KAYCEE, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, I'm all for drama. I love trash TV. Like I'll watch Love is Blind. You know what I mean? And so I love that drama, especially if it doesn't involve me directly. Yeah, but you know, ultimately it does hurt the product, because if you're not able to turn it into something beneficial, like a storyline, or, you know, be able to work it in somehow, at the end of the day, it's going to hurt the product more than it's going to help.
Yeah, I think it definitely hurts the on-screen product. Not necessarily like from a it's not affecting the stories we're seeing per se on TV, but I think it's affecting Tony Khan's focus. It's affecting the talent's focus. I think their heads aren't in the game. When you're dealing with so much stuff behind the scenes, I feel like the quality suffers of just not having that camaraderie and that, hey, let's go entertain these people. You have so much stuff. I think probably every one of us have worked in a place at some point in our lives where there's drama in the workplace. And being in a toxic environment like that, you know, my girlfriend works at a place that's kind of toxic, and it feels like that consumes you, where you're not worried about your job. You're worried about the drama, the relationships, all the issues. And I think that's where they're really suffering, is because, you know, following AEW from the beginning, they were kind of touted as having just this family environment in the back. Everyone was pulling for each other. Everyone felt like they were a part of this little engine that was trying to make a mark in the industry. And I feel like that has since kind of fractured, and we've seen division, we've seen alliances, like cliques are starting in the back. So yeah, I think it's definitely affecting the on-screen product in that regard.
Yeah, once you start getting the click mentality and the separation backstage, that definitely bleeds over to your on-screen product. And I think it is definitely something that's going to affect the on-screen product. You know, it's stuff that you hear in the media that, you know, when you're watching the product, it's always in the back of your head, like, what's going on with the company?
Right.
And I think that affects the viewership as well. I mean, it affects when people are watching, if they know that backstage nobody's getting along.
Now, KAYCEE, like, where's the line for you? Because you said you like drama, and I'm the same way. Like, there is a big part of me with this locker room stuff that I eat up. Like, I love hearing like what's going on, and it becomes extremely interesting, like a real life soap opera that we're following on Twitter or whatever social media app you use. But where do you draw the line? Like, when does it become too much? You know, when does it take away and not just be entertaining to you?
I think when it starts becoming a detriment to the people themselves, you know, when they start pulling in, you know, something that crosses the line, or they say something about, you know, or, you know, it becomes unsafe for them to work with each other too. That's another thing. I mean, I doubt anybody would do anything purposely to hurt somebody, but if you're not really willing to work with them backstage and you're in that ring, you know, there's more of a chance of an accident or something, you know what I mean? Like something happening. I feel like that's where I draw the line, where it's like, okay, if this is just becoming completely toxic to where you all can't even care about each other, or you're saying things that are so extremely hurtful that you can't take that back. I think that's when it becomes a really big issue, and it's not fun to watch. It's just really cringy.
Yeah. What do you think, Tom? Like, do you eat this stuff up, or like, what do you worry about the company? Like, when you're seeing stuff like this, do you worry about it, or you just think it's all going to work out? And it's,
Man, you got to worry a little bit, but in the end, I think it'll work out. I mean, it's weird because we don't know, like, you know, internet, we're in a whole new field now from 20, 30 years ago. Like, we get all this shit leaking out, but who knew who Hogan really got along with back in the day that he's wrestling? Who knew who Flair really hated that he's wrestling? Fact is, now, because of social media, all this stuff is being known to us. We used to find this stuff out years later. We didn't know how much Macho and Hulk really hated each other until they were done.
I mean, imagine Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels during the Twitter age.
Oh my
Like,
God.
Oh, wow.
it would have been wild, man. Like, because they got in a fight in the back, you know, like all of that would have, I feel like, been blown up to a higher level, where back then they kept everything in house. So we're just hearing about it now on like Conrad Thompson podcast. So we didn't even know about that stuff. And today it's like, as soon as it happens, we're getting it. You know, as quick, we were talking before we went live, as quick as you can refresh your Twitter page, we're hearing about it.
Yeah, years ago we didn't have this, and you know what? I love hearing the backstage stuff. I've watched this scrum from this past week so many times, and not just the CM Punk one, and we'll get to that, but Tony Storm dropping out about Thunder Rosa. Like, here we are seeing them tag team each week, and then she insinuates that Thunder Storm is only hurt because she doesn't want to drop the title to her.
Right.
So, like, And sure, there were rumors of this going around for weeks, but then when Tony Storm comes out and says that sitting right next to Tony Khan, it really makes you sit and wonder. And then Thunder Rosa tweets this week, maybe it's time for a change.
I mean, all that's crazy. And then, like you had said, Chad, all we saw with the Montreal Screwjob was what we saw on screen, and then what they talked about on air.
Right.
We didn't see anything that happened in the back until years later with Beyond the Mat.
It was the Wrestling with Shadows documentary.
Or Wrestling with Shadows.
The Bret Hart documentary.
Yeah, that's the first time we saw that, and that was like a peak. That's years after. So now everything is put on Front Street immediately.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very fast paced turn of events when you get these pressers and things like that, where it's happening now and you're watching it literally as it's happening.
I mean, the question is too, do we get another media scrum from Tony Khan after what happened this week?
Well, I mean, typically on Wednesdays, he's on Busted Open Radio. That's kind of became his spot. 11:30 on Busted Open Radio on Wednesdays. Tony Khan was always there. He didn't go today. And he hasn't tweeted since tweeting about the acclaimed Swerve in Our Glory match. So he's been pretty radio silent about all of this, which I imagine he's been juggling with a lot of stuff since that all took place. And that's one thing I mentioned it in the opening thing. I said, but you got to take into this isn't a guy who's just handling AEW. Like as far as focus, Tony Khan, he's in the middle of this is NFL season 1. This is week 1 in the NFL season. He's a part of the organization. He's got all of these things. Every little bit of space in your head that is dictated to solving issues or dealing with drama and problems, it's taking away from a part of your mind that could be working on something positive to grow any one of those companies, and I feel like when you're juggling all of that toxicity and drama, it lives rent-free in your head, but you have to deal with it. You have to pay that rent, and paying that rent is taking focus away from telling good stories and all of that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think we can all just agree that it's
hurting.
It's hurting, and it's a wild time.
Juggling. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything final to add to this before we move on to our next topic?
Nope.
All right. So our next topic of the evening. Now, Casey, this is the topic that you brought to the table. Is women's wrestling in AEW receiving proper representation? Now, I'll defer to you to go first on this since you brought the topic.
Awesome. Yeah. So, as I mentioned to y'all earlier, like I'm a fairly new wrestling fan, but like as a woman, I completely understand that, women are always going to be at a disadvantage in a predominantly male field. That's just, it's in anything, politics, job fields, everything. So, I come in understanding that. But to hear, the owner of this promotion flat out say like 8 minutes from CM Punk is going to be worth more than Thunder Rosa, and that's what I book for. Like just to have him flat out say it, it's like, okay, well I know where you stand. I know where the women's division stands. And it's disheartening because they do have a wonderful division. They have great talent in there. And to know that they're not being utilized the way that they could and being pushed and promoted and supported the way that they could, is just disappointing. And it makes it hard to watch as a wrestling fan and as a woman. Like I know the capability and the possibilities of how good this division could be. And I don't think they're getting that proper representation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Their women are so talented, but let's get some stories. And it doesn't have to be based just around the title. And other than Jade, Thunder Rosa's booking has been crap since she's won the title. Yeah. Finally looks like we might be seeing a Britt Baker and a Jamie Hayter feud, which I've been wanting since they've been teasing it for months. So we finally might get that story. Hopefully it plays out well. Hopefully it's some nice long-term storytelling. It's already a long-term story because they've teased it for so long. Mm-hmm. But now let's get a payoff. Let's get an awesome feud between the two. But yeah, let's start. Like you've got so many talented women on this roster. Let's start using them up to their capabilities.
it's almost like as the belt has changed, it's gotten worse.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like every time the story gets worse, and yeah, it's not being represented well, and it's a shame because there's so many people backstage that's working. You know, you have Danielson, you have Dustin Rhodes, Serena Deeb. There's so many people that are back there that could make this division amazing, but the time's not being given, and it's definitely not being represented well.
Well, I mean,
Nope.
if you listen to the flagship show, me and Sneed have been talking about how poorly they've handled Thunder Rosa. I mean, you're talking about every week she was getting a minute to come out onto the top of the ramp. We called her the top of the ramp champ because everything she did was a little interview with Tony Schiavone at the top of the ramp. And we're like, shoot angles. Like, you're putting these men in all of these interesting things. You're shooting vignettes with them. You're doing all of this stuff. And it's like the women's division is an afterthought.
No,
now,
for sure.
You know,
yeah, to go on for that about the top of the ramp, her first week after winning the championship, she gets fucking cut off by Nyla Rose. Like, I was like, you couldn't even give her like a celebration. Like, at least give her that. Yeah. She had to get that 2 weeks after she won it. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I thought that was so unfair that she couldn't even get a complete little like celebration of what she was able to accomplish.
And what was even more unfair is when she comes out to relinquish the title, she doesn't come out to do it though. She does it in the back. She doesn't even get to come in the ring.
I think she got about 50 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah. She has Tony Schiavone in the back. She doesn't even get top of the ramp for it. She can't even come to the ring. She's in the back. And that's just a shame that she only gets less than a minute to tell her story.
That right there shows me, even if you say we love our women's division, we think the women's title is prestigious, by you having it in the back with a 50-second segment, that shows me how you truly feel.
Yep.
Period. Like, there's not even a question. Now, here's the thing, like, just to play devil's advocate about what Tony said, ratings, Punk 8 minutes, he's going to pull a higher rating than Thunder Rosa. Look, man, I get it. It's business. I get that CM Punk's this established guy. You are going to get maybe more eyes than a Thunder Rosa, but how are they ever supposed to get to that point where they pull higher ratings if you never give them an opportunity to put themselves out there and for fans to connect with them even more? Like, sure, Punk is more popular than Thunder Rosa overall. I get that. I get that we're trying to pop ratings. I get that we're wanting as many eyes as possible, but you have to give these people a shot. You can't just give them 40 seconds and then bitch that they're not getting eyes. You're not giving them a platform to get those eyes or to build to getting those eyes. And that's what's frustrating for me.
But how do we expect them to book the women's division any better than the rest of the show when the rest of the show has not been good lately? You know, even going back to the show we were at, you have Ricky Steamboat do a backstage segment where he chops a guy. Why wasn't that done in front of the crowd? The crowd would have went nuts if they did that out in the ring and Schiavone's doing an interview. If you got to see Steamboat chop a guy, Ricky Steamboat, he's a friggin' legend. Let the fans have the energy that he deserves. Let him feel that energy one more time for a chop. Like, it's just terrible booking all around.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, going to All Out this weekend and being at Rampage and then being at All Out, as soon as the women's, like, they replayed Athena and Jade's little interaction, and you just saw all these men get up and just like go to the restroom. It's their bathroom break. And I'm like, part of me was like, I'm pissed. Like, why aren't we supporting it? But I was like, if your owner doesn't even support it, they're not getting that airtime. I was like, I understand where they're coming from. These storylines haven't been given the proper build. They're not given the proper support. So of course, when the match comes on, you have no interest in it. So, I mean, part of me was upset about it, but at the same time, it's like, I get where these people are coming from. We're already working at a disadvantage. And if you're not going to give them that proper support, it's going to continue to be a product that no one wants to watch.
And what a disappointment. That match deserved more time in that show. Athena could have put on a hell of a match. Yes. And they were given maybe 5 minutes, if that. Like,
I didn't have an issue with that because I think they're trying to go the Goldberg route with Jade and just make her unstoppable while also kind of letting her get even more reps, because she is fairly young in the game. I think she's a year and a half, 2 years in now. So I think a lot of her shorter matches are a way to disguise maybe her inadequacies, you know. But I think what you said, KAYCEE, is very, very true, that it's like this systemic issue where the talent isn't getting time, so we can't invest in the talent. And then the talent doesn't have the time to build characters. And then essentially it turns your whole division into the bathroom break match, which is a shame. And it's just one of those things, like, it's not like they've never, like, the crowd doesn't want to get into it. You just have to put time into the talent and put compelling stories together, because that Britt Baker Thunder Rosa lights out match, I know everyone goes back to that, and everyone, that's kind of like the holy grail of AEW women's matches. But dude, people were invested. Like, that was the talk of the wrestling week after that match. Everyone was talking about how AEW's women's division finally stepped up. We are here to play. And then they just kind of dropped the ball. And one of the biggest examples, like, they don't give us very, like, deep storytelling with the feuds. Like, you have Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. Toni Storm is a viable number one contender, and you put them in a tag team. You've got your champion doing tag matches for a division that doesn't exist. There is no women's tag division in your company. So she's just off doing this thing that doesn't matter, which lowers the value of the belt to me. Like, me and Sneed have been saying, I think Jade's belt, the TBS title, feels more important to me than Thunder Rosa or Toni Storm's title.
I agree.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. Are we okay? Go ahead, Tom. What were you saying?
No, I was made my point. I love the women. Let them get more time. Show that they can do it. They can do it. Their roster's so talented,
I
up
agree.
and down. And I'm always there. I love women's wrestling. I'm not like Hawk.
Yeah, well,
let's not talk about him.
Nobody is or should be like Hawk. So, but yeah, it is a shame, and it is not.
How do you think they fix
it?
And
that's what I was getting at. What fixes this? What turns this around?
I mean, number one, you start that nice segment you can have with Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker tonight. You get a little story outside of there. You have a new contender. Toni Storm's fighting tonight. It's nice to see somebody win a belt and get to fight on the very next episode of Dynamite. Seems like you win a belt and you disappear from one. So maybe that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but again, like, they're putting Penelope forward. Like, why her? Like, you know, there had been no, like, interactions with them prior. So it just feels like it was thrown together. Like, oh, she's our champion. Okay, you're gonna fight this girl now. It doesn't, you know, I wish that we already had those storylines, because, you know, we already knew that CM Punk, after CM Punk fought Moxley, that MJF was going to be the factor. Like, that storyline was already starting to build. They already had these, like, storylines kind of going side by side, parallel. It's like with the women's, it's like, okay, when Thunder Rosa won, nobody knew who she was gonna fight next, and then Nyla Rose whacked her in the back of the head, and now we know that that's her. It's like, I feel like there's no build, and that's unfortunate, because it's like, I'm excited that she's getting to fight, you know, as champion, but it just feels thrown together again.
That's what happens when you have one token segment a week. Like, you don't have those other segments to build up to weave those stories. To me, it's not the issue of matches per se. Like, we get the one match, which I think is a shame, but at the same time, it's like, it's what KAYCEE's talking about. It's the fact that, we'll get a match, but there's no stakes. There's no feud. There's no built-in story. It really just feels like a match for the sake of a match. Like, oh, we have this segment. And the shitty thing is the match is usually in a terrible time slot. Case in point, the four-way women's match comes after the banger acclaimed Swerve in Our Glory match, where everyone was just zapped from being so into that match. And there was a point, me and Sneed were watching it. I looked at Sneed and I was just like, this crowd is dead. Like
was.
the women's out there busting their ass and no one cares.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that they weren't doing enough to get that reaction. It was the fact of where Tony Khan decided to put that match. That is the classic. I just watched a 20-some minute banger match. I have to chill out for a second. I have to go grab a beer. That's where they put that match.
You know what? The crowd was dead after the Acclaimed up until the Punk and Mox match. However, Hayter was pretty over in the arena. I don't know how that came across on TV, but she was way over.
She was over. You could feel it.
Push that girl because the fans are into her. She is great. Such a sweet person. But let's
I love her.
No,
You know what? Talented. You know, one thing I think they never should have cut is Britt Baker's segment that they would do on
the waiting room.
The waiting room.
Yeah. It was like her Piper's Pit. That was cool because it was like this unique thing. Britt and Rebel would have a guest on. I think Max Caster rapped on it one time, I believe.
Marco Stunt
sang on it. It was like a little mini show, but it allowed you to. That's the only person I feel like they've built in the women's division is Britt.
Yeah,
that's
wrong.
They could have taken that segment and used that to build story.
Yep.
That's, I mean, I know they had more of a variety show type feel to it, but you could have used that to build story and that been your story build segment.
And honestly, just to tie this in before we move to the last segment, just to tie this all back into the first question, that behind the scenes drama, when your focus is spread thin, something that you haven't ever truly put time and investment in, it's really going to suffer. So something like the women's division that needs a little more focus and tender loving care to really flesh that division out, those are the first things that are going to fall when you have a bunch of backstage shenanigans going on.
Yep, exactly.
Just do better. They just need to do better.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any final things to say before we move on to the final topic?
No. Let's do it.
All right. Final topic of the evening. Should CM Punk be released from AEW after the all-out presser fallout?
All right, I'll start. No, absolutely not. Like, the guy is in the fucking dirt sheets week after week. He's being buried for getting Colt Cabana fired. You hear all this other shit. The guy got to speak his mind. He said he hated doing what he was doing. He said he hated that he had to step that low to get his voice out there. It was entertaining TV, and the guy was only speaking truth. He got to say his side of the story.
How do we know he's speaking truth, though?
I guess we got to hear his side of the story. We got to hear his side of the story. Let's not call it truth. Let's say it was his side.
And
his truth.
I get that, but like it's at a certain point, just because he's speaking truth, like when you're burying your company, you're burying your boss who's sitting right there beside you. I mean, is that good for the company?
That it wasn't you. It's not you, Tony. I mean, he's the one who hired those EVPs.
Oh, dude, it's not the words you're saying. It's what you're doing to the guy. It's not what's coming out of your mouth. Like, actions speak louder than words. You're making this guy look like a fucking chump.
Yep.
He is a chump. It didn't need CM Punk to make him look
So you would rather sacrifice the overall wellness of the company for one man being entertaining and speaking his truth?
He is getting eyes on this company. Everybody in the wrestling world has.
Are those good eyes? Is this good attention?
Well, when everybody tunes in tonight and we see that rating pop, a good rating,
dude,
it's
a pop. Who cares about the rating?
Spike. Was it good for Vince McMahon to come out on SmackDown and get that rating spike?
No.
That's a
it's not about popping a rating. It's about sustaining a rating.
Oh, that's what they have to take advantage of tonight and put on a banger show that are going to make people want to come back next week. Take advantage of this. And if you people could put all your differences aside and build a story out of it, this could be the story you've been waiting for.
Could be.
There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda that we've been saying long before this CM Punk scrum thing had happened.
But this is the perfect opportunity to take that and run with it and turn it into something.
I honestly think that, going back to what we had been talking about is like, there's just so much of a lack of focus. I don't think he has that capability right now to be able to make this into something good. So I think honestly, I think he needs to be released just because I think it would allow Tony the opportunity to reestablish authority, because it was disrespectful the way he was talking. You know, CM Punk was talking in front of his boss. Like, I was like, I would never, ever, ever talk that way in front of my superiors. I don't understand how he just let it happen. And I think that, you know, by releasing him, he could try to reestablish himself as like, hey, like, it doesn't matter what you think or care about, like, I'm still the boss here. And he might just have to be that martyr. And, you know,
100%.
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. I don't know if it will happen, but I think that it would be a good opportunity for him to try to reestablish himself.
The only way CM Punk should stay employed in this company is if all of this is turned into something that makes money on my television. If this is just one of those things that there's behind the scenes apologies that are dished out and we just move on like it never happened, fuck that, man. Yeah. This has bred dissent in the company. It's made Tony look weak, and it's made a lot of people be like, how can this guy be the general leading me into war? I don't want to follow this guy. He didn't stand up for himself. He didn't stand up for the guys who built this company. The Young Bucks got trashed in that. Hangman got trashed. They were there leading the Bucks. When CM Punk was in Chicago, afraid to join the company because he wanted to make sure they did something that was worth joining. They came to him in the beginning. He said no. He waited for them to be successful. The Kennys, the Bucks, the Hangmans, the Codys, the Jerichos, they were there when no one knew if this thing was going to be successful. And now this guy comes in and he's the big shot and he's talking shit on the boss. Fuck that, man. I think that guy needs...
Let's say the Bucks are really the reason why Cody left and they pushed Cody out, because there's rumors about that going around.
Yeah, but that's all we don't know.
No, but I'll just say it's same thing's now happening with CM Punk, and they let Punk go and the Bucks are still there. Is it just going to continue with the Bucks? Like, they've got to use this whole situation, regardless of who's right and wrong, to bring that whole roster together and stop everything now. Like, you can't be having politics backstage. We've seen how that's worked in WWE. It doesn't.
In my
work.
opinion, Punk made the cardinal sin in pro wrestling. Even bigger than making his boss look like a chump. He did the number one cardinal sin that he always talks about. I'm a wrestler's wrestler. I'm a vet. You need to listen to the vets, which I do agree. Young talent should take advice from vets. I'm behind that. But he speaks this game, but he doesn't follow it because he did the number one cardinal sin to me. He fucking buried the boys in public. No Terry Funk, no any of the guys that he looks up to would ever do that. That's shit you handle that in the locker room. The business stays with the business and the marks stay with the marks. He let the marks in on personal locker room shit, and I think that's a cardinal sin.
I think
he buried the boys.
Yeah, he not only like buried them, but he demoralized them by calling them fucking children. I'm like, just because you wrestled for so many years doesn't make you a higher authority than anybody that's in that business. So it's like, not only did you talk shit about them, but you called them children, which I was like, that's so disrespectful.
Yeah, I agree.
Get his ass out of there. Honestly, if it's going to be this thing where he is causing all this, then let's be honest. Cause Tom, I know you said the ratings, like CM Punk, he's caused these, like the ratings. Has he though? Like, has the ratings taken such an increase since he's done there?
Shit.
Nobody's popped the ratings. Nobody's gotten them a steady increase. No matter who they're bringing it, they stay the same.
So then why keep him? If he's causing
why is he
all
so
this,
important?
If he's such a cancer to the locker room and he causes all this drama, why keep him?
You have wrestlers back there who swear by him.
Who?
Yeah, no, I was like, name some names.
FTR are on Punk's side. Danhausen's on Punk's side. Hobbs loves him.
Have they came out? You're pulling quotes that happened. Those quotes were said.
I want to know what they think now.
FTR is still saying things that they love Punk.
What'd they say?
When?
Recently, they just posted pictures with him again. They're still on Team Punk. And again, FTR
since the presser.
FTR hates the Young Bucks too for what they do backstage. So,
but since the presser, FTR.
Well, the reports I'm reading are saying a lot of the people that were in Punk's corner have not sided with him. It's all quiet on the Western Front.
Interesting. Well, I'm so curious to see what happens tonight. I luckily Tony Khan is as big as a punk mark as me, so he's going to do everything he can to keep him. Because I love Salty Punk. That's when he was at his best in WWE.
But here's the difference that kills me about this. Like, that's when he was at his best in WWE. In WWE, people got behind him because they hated the company. You know, his whole character was the big bad company. This is totally different. This isn't him against the company. You know what I mean? Like, people love AEW. He's getting a shit ton of backlash from this. I think, like, I don't see many people out there beating the drum of he's in the right. Like, he said a lot of things that I agree with. The taking advice. I didn't even have a problem with the Colt Cabana stuff. I mean, that's airing dirty laundry a little bit. It may be a little unprofessional, but hey, you've dealt with that for 10 years. If you want to get it off your chest, do it. But when you start tearing down the company you're in and the people that are in charge, that's where I have the issue.
Like the whole Hangman thing, he gave his receipt when he did that promo a couple weeks ago, if he wanted to get back at him. Like that, I definitely don't think that was necessary. But if the Young Bucks, do we even know what the quote was that the Young Bucks said that he got so upset about?
I'm not sure.
Was there a quote he was upset?
I don't even think it was a quote. I think he was just generalizing how, you know, how he just didn't like it. I don't know how unprofessional they were and everything. So I don't know if it was necessarily a specific
they spoke
quote.
to the magazines about him. So I can't find what he was.
The big thing that he was, the big quote that I remember him talking about was the Hangman quote, where Hangman's like, "I don't take advice from anyone."
Yeah,
that's the thing he was pulling from. And I know there's rumors that the Bucks fought to keep Colt, and they, you know, when Tony was going to let his contract run out. No, this is all dirt sheet shit, but they supposedly the Bucks had Colt move to ROH instead of just letting his contract run out completely. KC, do you think how bad would it hurt AEW to lose CM Punk?
I don't think so. I think bringing CM Punk in the beginning was, you know, like, oh, like this big draw. He's this big name. But I think that AEW has established so many names already. Like, now people know MJF. Now people know Britt Baker. Now people know Hank. You know what I mean? I feel like their names have been built so well that I don't think they need that. I think the sparkle and dazzle of having CM Punk is kind of, it's lost its fizzle. It's like when you open a soda can and, you know, you lose all the carbonation. I think it's done its job. And I think if they lose him, I don't think they're going to fall because they don't have that name power. I think they already have the talent and the roster that they need to be able to continue on and build and be stronger without him.
Yeah. I just worry. I think about other sports, you know, Terrell Owens in football. Every team that guy went to, he was a locker room cancer. He kept getting cut and cut. There is something to be said, man, about that locker room camaraderie. And if you have a guy in there, and Tom, I know you're saying FTR is on his side. FTR has stuck up for him prior to this. Now, I don't know how they feel about the scrum. I think there's a lot of people that probably have new opinions on how that situation was handled. But I just wonder, like, are those people going to... him being in that locker room and having those people that do side with him, and then you have the Bucks and the people that side with them, is it good to have that much contention in the locker room? And I guess, like, it's not good, but at the same time, it's wrestling. Not everyone's going to get along. Not everyone's going to like each other. But I just think this is a higher level of, you know, Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle don't like each other, but they can go out there and do business. And it doesn't seem like it's cancerous to the locker room, but they do not like each other. This is different when you're going in front of all these pseudo journalists and burying guys. That, I think, it crosses the line a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just letting the blinds blur a little bit too much.
I think you're just hoping it's a work.
I don't think it's a work. I think it might, if anything, it could be
hoping it's a work.
I hope, yes, exactly. I hoped it's a work. I don't think it's a work.
I think it's legit. Casey, you think there's any way they can turn this into a story, or do you think it's just a bridge too far?
I don't think so. I think some of the stuff that was said was so, you know, like, that's really hard to process. And I was like, I don't know how you can move forward. I mean, it would take a lot of creativity. I actually had a friend of mine message me and they're like, oh, it's all the work, and tried to explain it. And I was like, that would just be a lot of work for them to do. Like, because they're like, oh, they purposely sent Cole Cabana to ROH, and that was to get his name back into the conversation, and so that way he could bring him back up in the scrum. I was like, I don't know if they're even that.
People drawing the lines for a work
Yeah.
here are like conspiracy nuts.
I picture that constant meme where he has all the
The red lines.
Yeah.
These are my
You're not
theories.
bringing MJF back on this night to have it overshadowed by that. There's just no way you're having a big night like MJF being gone for 4 months. Here he is. Now let's just make people forget about that. Right there shows it's not a work.
Yeah.
That was one of the benefits of the Acclaim not winning those titles, because that would have totally just been a forgettable moment.
Mhm.
That was such a big moment for them. If they would have won those titles and then this happened, no one would remember that.
Samoa Joe came back, and we were driving back, and I was like, I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
He came back. Oh yeah. That was
So
the
many
thing.
moments, and no one's like, the fact that MJF, that whole angle happened and no one's really talking that much about it.
It's not a work. I guarantee it was not a work.
And that's what, that last thing I'll say is, that's what made me mad about the Punk thing, is he talks about, being a worker's worker and not stepping on your own dick in an angle. It's like, dude, that's all you're doing, is taking the shine from all of the guys who worked.
Yep.
You just took all the shine from them by doing this.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything to say to wrap this up before we wrap up?
It was a good one. So let's see how it goes. This is recorded before Dynamite, so by the time you guys are listening to this, who knows what's going on?
It's 8 p.m. on Wednesday right now. So I mean, we're right there at Dynamite. So we don't know what's happening.
When this drops, Punk might be fired.
He
Who
might
knows?
be fired.
Who knows?
Hey.
Should be interesting. All right. Go ahead.
KAYCEE, we had a blast having you on.
Do we have a round robin?
We
I
do.
don't know.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay,
Tony Khan.
What's the round robin?
Does Tony Khan have a right to be pissed that WWE booked shows on this Labor Day weekend? He mentioned it, that he was pissed that they held shows.
No.
Pissed over.
It's competition, buddy.
Yep.
Step up your game.
All is right. All is right in love and war, man.
No right to be. Is that the question? Does he have a right to be pissed?
Yeah, he was pissed.
Oh.
He's like, he doesn't want them running shows on his weekend.
I mean, he can feel any way he wants.
Oh
to,
yeah,
but-
he can have. Yeah, I don't feel that's justified though.
No, it's
Yeah.
competition. You want people to watch your product? Put the better product out there. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I think WWE was happy when they heard a new wrestling company was coming. It's competition. It's the nature of the game, baby.
And it wasn't even direct competition because it was on a Saturday, and then the next one's so it's like,
Yeah.
He's claiming that's why they did lower spies for this event.
Put your big boy pants on, Tony.
Oh yeah.
Put your big boy pants on and stop worrying about what other people are doing to you and start doing stuff to your company to improve it. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
refocus. Yep.
Worry about yourself.
Yeah.
All right, KAYCEE, it's been awesome having you on. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at Over the Moonsault, and on Twitter, I am OT Moonsault.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, definitely go check it out, especially on IG, because you get all the cool cosplay photos. It's the best I've seen. I'll say that. So go
I
check,
just
check it
followed
out.
her right now, guys. So you do the same.
Over the Moonsault on IG.
I love the name too.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
very good name. Super creative.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up for this edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. Make sure you guys are following us at the turnbuckletavern.com. You'll find everything Tavern at that address. Tom, we got a couple of seconds. Go ahead and get some of your shit in.
GOG Fickett, Twitter and Instagram. Turnbuckle Sessions now on Wednesdays.
All right. That's going to wrap us up. Court is dismissed.